Just thought I'd do a little post on Tony Bellew and what's next for him. As we all know, he had a sensational win over David Haye. And if you haven't seen my pre and post fight posts and videos, then you can go back and have a look at those for updates on David Haye and what my thoughts were about that fight leading up to it and afterwards. But fair play to Tony Bellew. He managed to pull it off and did the unexpected and pulled off a sensational win. So fair play to him. And he showed a lot of guts, a lot of heart. And I never doubted that about Tony Bellew anyway. So maximum respect and props to him for doing that. But that result has literally made him very, very, very hot property. So, you know, he is very sought after at the moment and he can go wherever he wants. He can fight at cruiserweight for a unification. He's got a number of options now, and one of those is fighting at the heavyweight division for a heavyweight title. So that must be very, very exciting for him at the moment. I'm really excited about this whole situation. I was very excited about the David Haye fight and his comeback. Unfortunately, he's now out of the equation for a little while. But Tony Bellew can continue that momentum and make a campaign at heavyweight. And it will be interesting because David Haye was a good cruiserweight, better cruiserweight in my opinion. But he went up to heavyweight and won a title. And now the Bomber can do it. So, you know, good luck for him and fair play to him. So if we're talking about the heavyweights, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about Deontay Wilder. We're thinking about Joseph Parker. We're talking about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. So let's just go through each of those in brief. So it's not going to be like an in-depth analysis, but let's just sort of, you know, gloss over all of them. Now, I think Deontay Wilder will be very dangerous for Tony Bellew. I think he's too strong, he's very athletic, and he's very quick. And he's got a tendency to pull things out of the bag. So there's been situations where Deontay Wilder's look relatively vulnerable, and he's been open to getting hit, but then he'll just pull it out of the bag with a wonderful right hand, and he'll finish the fight in the later rounds if he has to. So he's very, very strong, and for that reason I don't think that Tony Bellew should be fighting Deontay Wilder. I think Tony Bellew would lose. I think Deontay Wilder will be far too big, far too strong, far too fast and athletic. Now, when we're talking about boxing ability, I actually think that Tony Bellew is a very good boxer, if not better than Deontay Wilder. So it's not a question of Tony Bellew not having the boxing ability to defeat Wilder. I think it's more a question of the power. I think if he goes up to heavyweight and fights him, it would be too much of a tough fight. I don't think he could. I think. Oops, sorry about that. I think he could. I think it could be a very, a very tough fight for him. Sorry about that noise, by the way. The phone just started ringing, so I had to quickly turn it off. But yes, I think it'll be a tough fight. So, but as I say, I lost my train of thought now. But as I say, I think that Tony Bellew is a better boxer. So I think that it's not a question of him not being able to outbox Deontay Wilder. I think it's just the power. So I think he should stay away from that fight. Next option would be Anthony Joshua. Again, for similar reasons, I don't think he should fight Anthony Joshua. I think Anthony Joshua is too strong, too quick, and I think that he could do some damage if he was to fight someone like Anthony Joshua. But again, we're talking about boxing ability. You know, Anthony Joshua is relatively inexperienced compared to Tony Bellew, who's been there and done it, experienced the dogfights, and he's a lot more experienced. So again, when it comes to boxing ability, I'm not saying that Anthony Joshua is a better boxer. I just think he's very big, quick and powerful, so he could potentially be dangerous for Tony Bellew. So moving on to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury isn't as powerful as Wilder or Joshua. Okay, so I think it makes a little bit more sense for Tony Bellew to go for someone like Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury is more of a boxer than he is a power puncher. So if Tony Bellew was to fight Tyson Fury, it would be more of a boxing match. I don't think, if you're fighting at heavyweight, then you've got a strong punch. Let's not kid ourselves. But if you look at Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua's knockout ratio, I believe it's higher than Tyson Fury. So if he was to fight Tyson Fury, I don't think he would have to be concerned as much about the punching power. I think Tyson Fury is very strong. I think he's very fast and he can box, and those qualities are what Tony Bellew has as well. So rather than it being a slugfest, I think it'd be more of a boxing match. So I think you've got two very good fighters, two champions, and I think that would be a very good and technical boxing match to watch. So if you think about it, why would you fight someone like Tyson Fury? He's a lot bigger, a lot more awkward, can box, and you risk losing your big chance to win a heavyweight title by fighting someone like that who's as gifted as Tyson Fury. Why would you risk wanting to fight Anthony Joshua, who's very strong and powerful, similar to Deontay Wilder? So I think if he's going to fight anybody, I think he should actually go for Joseph Parker. So out of all the heavyweights that are available, I think he should go for Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker hasn't had that many fights. He's not that experienced. He hasn't got that much boxing skill. He's a good fighter. He's a strong fighter. He's a tough fighter. He's got a good punch on him. He can take a punch. But I think Tony Bellew is actually a better boxer and more experienced than him. So in my opinion, I think out of all the four heavyweights we've just mentioned, I think Tony Bellew should aim to fight Joseph Parker, because I think he could genuinely put in a very good fight against him and beat him. So, for that reason, I think he should go for Joseph Parker. Now, Joseph Parker's fighting Hughie Fury, and I think that is a 60-40 fight. I think Hughie Fury is a slightly better boxer than Joseph Parker, and for that reason, I'm putting my money on Hughie to do the job. But let's just say Joseph Parker comes out of that, then Tony Bellew could face him, and I think Tony Bellew could beat him. Out of all the heavyweights that are out there, and out of all the champions that are out there, I think that Joseph Parker would be better for Tony Bellew. I think he'd actually outbox him and he'd beat him. And even if he was to fight if Tony Bellew was to fight Hughie Fury, again, I think the outcome would be the same. Too experienced, and I think he'd be either of those two heavyweights. So that's my thoughts on where Tony Bellew should go next. And you never know. At the end of the day, by the time he fights any one of those guys, David Haye will be kind of, almost ready to come back into the division. He might be ready to come back and fight again. So we would have at that point two of Britain's best cruiserweights, both cruiserweight champions, both heavyweight champions, and it will be the battle of the British cruiserweights. All right, fair enough, they might fight a heavyweight, but it would be a battle of the best cruiserweights who went up to heavyweight and won world championships. So I think that would be very, very good if Bellew was to capture a world heavyweight title, and then set up that mouth-watering trilogy between Tony Bellew and David Haye, if that's possible, and if Haye is able to fully recover. But Tony Bellew, at the end of the day, he's said he's ready to retire. Now he's done it all, and he could retire now, but I think the big money fights really start now for him, because if he was to beat Joseph Parker, he could defend his heavyweight title against someone else, or he could even rematch Parker. He could then become a very big draw and fight for a cruiserweight title and unify there. So I think the big money fights are really on the cusp of being made now, and I think he's a red hot property at the moment. So for him to retire now wouldn't be very good. You've got the heavyweight fights, you've got the fights against David Haye. So I think that Tony Bellew has really gone up in my estimation, and has made a little name for himself. So I don't think he should retire. I think he should consider his options, fight Parker, and give Haye that rematch. But anyway, let me know your comments and thoughts in the sections below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Just thought I'd do a little post on Tony Bellew and what's next for him. As we all know, he had a sensational win over David Haye, and if you haven't seen my pre and post fight posts and videos, then you can go back and have a look at those for updates on David Haye and what my thoughts were about that fight leading up to it and afterwards. But fair play to Tony Bellew. He managed to pull it off and did the unexpected and pulled